what exactly is Linux? So Linux is an open source, free, alternative operating system that can run on pretty much any hardware. So if you have like an old laptop somewhere, you can wipe it clean and put Linux on it entirely for free. Typically, Linux is very lightweight and it's very secure by default. Of course, it has vulnerabilities, but it's a little bit more secure than other systems by default. And then also it's typically command line focused, but you can also, get a distribution of Linux that has, GUIs. So there are pretty much hundreds of different flavors, as people call it in the industry. These are just different versions of Linux, and you can just search for them on the web and you can find them and see which one fits you the best. But the one that we're going to be using for this course, and that you would most likely be using if you were to get into ethical hacking, is Kali Linux. And it's pretty much designed primarily to be used for penetration testing and ethical hacking. So let's just go over some of the basics of Linux. So the terminal. So a lot of the things that you're going to be doing in Linux is going to be command line, especially with Kali Linux and the hacking stuff. So you're going to have to get used to it, to get used to staring at that black box, all right? And just lines and lines of code type stuff. Now, it's not that bad. You're not really going to be looking at code. You're just going to be looking at the different commands and the outputs from it. It's not anything too crazy, so don't worry. We're going to get into it and start very basic. So to access the command line, you're going to need to open a terminal. So in Kali, what you're going to want to do is click that black box you see up there that has a white outline on it, and it's going to open up a terminal. From that terminal, we can enter in commands. So I have a list of some of the basic Linux commands that I want to go over with you guys. There's a handful of commands that you need to know. You don't have to be like a Linux master to become an ethical hacker, but there are some commands that you really do need to know. And just note that Linux is case sensitive all the time, so make sure that you're inputting commands exactly how I show you them. So just to briefly go over some of the commands. So who am I prints the username of the current user. Hostname prints the host name of the device. PWD prints the current directory that you're in, which is just a folder. LS, it lists out the contents of the current directory that you're in. CD followed by the directory name, it changes to that directory. CD ... it backs up by one directory. So like if I'm in the home/user folder, if I put CD ... and hit enter, it'll take me back to the home folder. Okay, so mkdir and then the directory name, so this pretty much creates a new directory. rm file name, it deletes the file name that you indicate right there. And then there's rmdir, it deletes the indicated directory. su-username, it'll allow you to switch users. Like in Windows, we typically have to log in and out. In Linux, you just do it at the command line, and it's very, very quick. You can just su-username, and then you're good to go. Put in the password, and you're good. Sudo, and then any command executes that command with root privileges, which is the same as administrative privileges. Okay. Sudo-i allows you to switch immediately to the root user account, and history shows a list of all the recent commands that you have executed. So ifconfig prints out the IP address and network interface information for the system, and then chmod and abc right there is going to be like it's going to be 3 numbers, but I just put abc there if it's a placeholder, and then the file name, so that'll change the permission of the indicated file, and we're going to go over that. So now let's go over to our Kali Linux machine and actually try out some of these commands. Okay, so we're at the home screen of our Kali Linux machine. So this is the terminal box right here. So click on that, and then it should open up a terminal window right here. So let's go through the commands that we just went over in that slide really quickly. So if you type in who am I, hit enter, it tells me Kali. That's my username. That's the current username that executed that command. So now let's try the hostname command. That shows you the hostname. Remember, I named this this box Kali, so of course. So pwd, present working directory. This tells me that I'm currently in the home/Kali folder. And if I wanted to see what was in here, I'm not sure if there's anything in here. Oh, there is. So ls, it lists out the contents of the directory. You can add different switches on ls. I like to do ls/la. It shows all files and lists them out like vertically. and shows permissions as well. So that's something that I like to do. That's something that you'll probably find useful as well as an ethical hacker. And then, so let's see, let's do an ls again. So if I want to change to the documents folder, it's cd documents, and then it's switched to the documents folder. So we can confirm that pwd when home/cali/documents. So now if I wanted to go back, because let's say I switched to the wrong directory, a cd space ... and now I'm back in the home/cali folder. There you go. So if I wanted to make a directory called, hacking tools, we'll do mkdir hacking tools. And now if we do an ls, we see that there's a directory there and we can switch to it. So cd hacking tools. So that's pretty cool. So let's back out. So let's say that we wanted to remove a file. So I'm just going to make a file really quick. This is another command that I didn't list on there. It's called touch, and then I'm just going to say test file. It just makes a file. So now you see test file right there. So what we can do, we can remove this test file. So if we want to delete it because it was a mistake, rm and then test file. And now test file is no longer there. There you go. So now rmdir, the other remove function, we can get rid of that hacking tools folder that we made. Oh, and also at any time with Linux, this is a quick little nugget. You can hit tab when you're starting to type things, and it'll auto complete it for you. It's very useful when you're trying to rush, or it just makes things a little bit easier, and you get into the flow a lot, and you'll start seeing that you're using the tab function a lot. But anyway, so rmdir hacking tools is no longer there. So now let's say I wanted to switch to another user. I don't think I have another user here, but let's see if I can do su Cali, and then you put in the password, super secret password, and it switches to that user. I don't think I have any other users on here, but we can do a sudo -i, and this will allow us to switch to root. Bam, so now I'm the root user. And if anytime you switch users or anything, or if you switch to root, you can just type in exit and you can get right out of it. So also if I wanted to do like, let's say like this directory here, I can ls it right now and list out the directory, everything that's in it. But if I didn't have rights to this folder, like maybe it was owned by root and I couldn't see any of this stuff and I couldn't execute this command here, I would do a sudo command and then I would do ls. And typically the sudo command will also, depending on how your system is set up, it'll ask you for your password, but it doesn't always do that. But also note that when you do use sudo, it lasts, I'm not sure the exact time interval, but it lasts for a good while after you do sudo, and then you won't have to do it again for a while until you don't execute any commands for a while. So moving on to the next command, let's say we wanted to see what commands we've been doing, because there's something I did earlier that I need to do again because I need to see it. This is very helpful. So you type in history, hit enter, and it shows you the history of your commands. So then ifconfig, which is going to show us our network information. So the way this Kali VM is set up is different than the older ones. You actually have to do sudo ifconfig, and then it'll show you everything. It's set up a little bit more secure than the older ones were. So if you have an older distro of Kali, then you might not have to do that, but the way they set these ones up, you have to. So now let's make another file really quick because we are in home/Kali. So let's make another file. So touch test file 2, just because. So we see test file 2 is there, and we see, ls, just -l. Sometimes it gets a little bit overwhelming when you do ls-la. So with the test file 2, so you can see that the owner of the file, which is Kali, where you see Kali twice. So the first one represents the owner of the file. The second one represents the group that the file belongs to. So the owner of the file has read and write access, which is represented by the RW that you see there, and the group actually has read access, and then everyone else has read access as well. So this is typically how you'll see Linux permissions, and that's how you would interpret them. So we can change these permissions if we want with the chmod command. So it would be chmod, and then those numbers I talked about before, where the ABC was 3 placeholders. So let's say we wanted to make sure everybody can see and read this file and execute it if it's an executable file. We would do chmod 777 and then test file 2. And now test file 2 is executable. That's why the color changed. And now everyone has read, write, and execution access. So you can look on more specifics of the Linux permissions. I'm not going to go over them in detail here. It could be kind of confusing, but I'll include something in the resources for you guys to be able to go learn a little bit more about Linux permissions, because it's something that's very important to learn as well. Okay, so now let's just go over some important directories really quick that you should really be aware of when it comes to Linux. So when you just see slash, that's just the root directory of the system where, you know, pretty much everything starts. Every file and every folder is included in this directory. Then there's slash etc, and this contains, you know, just system configuration files. Slash bin, it contains executable binary files, you know, of all the installed applications. And then there's sbin, contains the executable binary files of important system applications. There's the slash var slash log folder, and it's typically where, you know, different syslogs or logs for the system are stored. And then there's the slash home and then the slash username, typically the home directory for the specified user. And this is created, like if you create a new user, it creates this directory for them by default. And if you go to log in, it automatically puts you there as well. So now let's talk about copying and moving files, because this is something else that's probably pretty important as well for you guys. So there's the cp command followed by the file name and then a path. So it's going to place a copy of the indicated file, and you can use a directory and point to that file as well if you want to. It's kind of personal preference, but it's, for me, I like to be in the directory of the file I'm trying to copy and then copy it to somewhere else. So that's what I would like to do. MV file name and then the path where you want to save it at, it moves the indicated file to that path, so it doesn't make a copy, it just moves it. So once you move it, it'll be pretty much deleted or removed out of the folder that it's currently in. So yeah, just please note, don't forget that it's going to delete the file like in the folder that it's in right now. Don't mess that up. So let's go ahead and test this out really quick. Okay, so we have our test file 2 here. So let's say we want to copy it. So cp, and then you're going to do test file 2, and then you're going to choose the path. Let's say we want to put it into our desktop folder. There we go. And you saw it actually popped up right there on the desktop. So test file 2 is now there. Now let's say that was a mistake and we want to move it back. So let's say we want to move, and we'll try this from here. You can switch to the same directory, but we can do it from here too. You can do it from anywhere really. So desktop slash test file 2, and then we're going to choose that we want to put it back to home slash Kali, and then it's back in this folder. It is no longer on the desktop.